The other day, Cade's playing in Washington. I think it's on Tuesday night, and it's 5 minutes into the game. There's a loose ball. He's playing defense. I think we'll say that if he got a collapsed lung without breaking a rib, that is a good sign. He's still going to be in a lot of pain, but that is a good sign. And they did not announce a rib injury when they announced this injury.
Yeah, that's the critical thing that I've heard this morning was that they're glad, even though the news is pretty bad, they're glad that this was not a broken rib, because a broken rib means something catastrophic, essentially. Like, it's not like you can, if you're playing football, you can just shoot it up or whatever it is. Like, it would be almost the end of his season. Collapsed lung. Here's the timeline, people. The Pistons came out this afternoon and said he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Assuming this injury is mild, he's going to have the 2 weeks where you can't do anything, right? Probably
can't fly,
breathing
bro.
is hard. Right. No, they had to drive him home. They had to drive him home from DC. Yeah, everything's painful, right? So after the 2 week period, the hope is that for 1 week, he will be able to engage in non-contact basketball activities. And then in the 4th week, the hope is that he will be able to participate in contact basketball activities to get his wind back, to figure things out. If that's the case, that puts you at April 14th. The regular season will have concluded. I think it's April 13th is the final day, at least for Detroit. The NBA playoffs begin April 18th, that next Saturday, which is an extra 4 or 5 days because of the play-in and everything else. So best case scenario for this, they're hoping that he will be back for game 1, depending on if that's Saturday or Sunday, how the NBA schedules it. And now the concern is just, will the Pistons hold on to the number 1 seed in the meantime, because they have nothing and nobody that can take the place of what Cade Cunningham does. Wendy, there is not a player more valuable to his team.
That's right.
In terms of shot creation amongst the really good teams in the league than Detroit is with Cade Cunningham. So you can't replace that. And your only hope is that you don't capsize for the last 14 games of the season, which could very well happen anyway.
I also don't. I think oftentimes, like, the 1 seed down the stretch of these races is a little overrated. You know, I mean, I think that we're going to, it's like the drama of the moment. Oklahoma City and San Antonio, we felt like that might be a thing in the last month. We'll see. It still could be. But also, like, if they fell to the 2 seed, and I think that's about as far as they're going to fall. I don't think the Knicks, I think, are 5 back and they already have the tiebreaker. I don't think the Knicks will gain 6 games.
They got the tiebreaker on the Knicks.
Like
that I can verify.
That should be like a 3-game tiebreaker.
Don't have to look it up.
Yes. So the furthest they'll probably fall is till 2. And if you look at, you don't know who's going to be a tougher matchup between 7 and 8, because it's all a bunch of jumbled teams down there who all, by the way, look dangerous. And that is what I would say is the bigger danger here, is that if he's either limited or unavailable to start the first round, like, it's not a walkover if you're the 1 seed or if you're the 2 seed. Sure, you'd like to have home court throughout the East playoffs, but also at the same time, if you just guarantee like a healthy Cade Cunningham and, by mid-May, I don't think it's that big a deal if a 1-2, materializes that, they have to win 1 game in Boston in a playoff series.
Well, I will look at their schedule here, Vince.
It's pretty daunting, quietly.
Yeah, I agree.
Next 2 nights aren't too bad. I know that.
All right, so
I'm here for one of them.
All right, you're waiting on them in Detroit right there. So they play the Wizards tonight. We're doing this pod on Thursday afternoon. Look, Jalen Duren had 36 and 12 the other night. Obviously Bam had 83.
Porzingis had 30. And
Porzingis had 30.
Yeah. Against the Wizards, by the way. That's what we're saying.
Yeah. If I were the Pistons, I would suggest getting it done tonight, just to bank that win. Then it's Golden State at home. The Warriors have lost, 8 of 9?
6 of 7.
6 of 7. All right. I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah, and I'm waiting to see. I should know soon, probably in the next 10 minutes, on their because that's the front side of a back-to-back, and in the previous one they rested a bunch of guys on the front side to go after the back side. I could see without Cade, they're playing at Atlanta on Saturday. I could see the Warriors maybe going after the Detroit game, but I should know soon.
Okay, so Washington, Golden State. Then on Monday they got the Lakers,
red hot Lakers,
who are hot. I don't know if you heard. You saw ESPN at all in the last 7 to 10 years. Then they play Atlanta at home. Now Atlanta,
Red hot.
By the way, like that's a potential first round matchup, I might point out. Then Thursday they play New Orleans, which New Orleans is 14-10 in their last 24 games as we're recording this. They have no incentive to lose. James Borrego is making a bid to keep that job. Stop playing the rookies as much. They're attacking the basket like crazy. We see you, James Borrego. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the Pelicans, but I'm just going to say we see you, James Borrego, and the Pelicans, who have no incentive to give up, and they are not giving up. That's no easy game. At Minnesota, I don't know if Ant will be back by then. Could go either way, but still a road game. Team Minnesota.
And remember, they got into it last year. Remember, they got into the big brouhaha in Minneapolis this time last year. So that will have a little extra heat, as they say in the wrestling world.
Then, after at Minnesota, at Oklahoma City. Don't like their chances there. Sorry. Then against Toronto at home. Toronto plays better on the road than they do at home. So, a playoff team. Then versus Minnesota at home. I don't know if Ant's going to be back. Same thing applies. Then they play 4 of their last 5 on the road. At Philly, at Orlando. 2 teams that could need to win those games. Right now, Orlando is fighting to stay out of the play-in. Milwaukee at home. We'll talk about the Bucks later. You'd like to see if you can get that one. That's on ESPN the last week of the season. And then they finish at Charlotte, at Indiana. Charlotte could be in a seeding battle and Indiana's tanking. That's not easy. It's a 4-game lead in the loss column, but it's not easy.
And the tiebreaker. They do have the tiebreaker over the Celtics. Important there. That adds an extra game. And also, I'll do this quick, but these are some of the games the Celtics have. Timberwolves, Thunder, 2 Hawks games, 2 Charlotte games, Knicks, Orlando on the last day of the regular season, Toronto. They have a couple tanking mixed in there, but it's about an even schedule down the stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. So, look, also Beef Stew is out. Isaiah Stewart is out for at least the next week, Vince, with the calf injury, which may be longer. I don't know. So, look, into every season, some rain must fall. That is another one of my sayings, and I'm sure you're getting tired of them by now.
It actually sounds like a beautiful poem to me.
Thank you, Anthony. So, all right. So that's where we're at with Detroit. Good opportunity for Dennis Jenkins. Dennis Jenkins might end up playing key minutes in the playoffs, Vince. He's going to get an opportunity to play a bunch of important minutes against some good teams here. I'm not saying it's a positive development, but, nothing is wasted in the NBA. So.
No, Dennis Jenkins, Marcus Sasser, once again, those guys can be productive, right? But I don't think there's no way you can replicate what Cade does. And here's the other thing too. They weren't playing well before Cade Cunningham got hurt. That's the untold thing about this. Cade was picking up Trey Johnson full court to try to get his team going. That was supposed to be Asar Thompson picking up Trey Johnson full court. And Cade said, hey, we need a spark. We're playing the Wizards 2 nights in a row. And then the worst possible thing happened. And now it takes them, in all likelihood, unless something miraculous happens out of MVP consideration, all NBA, everything else, the 65 game stuff. That's just a byproduct of it. But it puts a damper on a very positive season. And I'll say this. If you have the number 1 seed from soup to nuts and then you lose it on the back end, whether it's injury or something else, that doesn't make anybody feel good.
Should this cast a different light on the Jaden Ivey Herder trade? And I mean, could that, that it depends, I'm sure, on what you think of Ivey. And right now he's not even playing in Chicago.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe he wouldn't have helped that much. Jenkins had kind of leaped him, it seemed, at least some of the playmaking stuff. But seems like Herder's not doing a ton for them. And Ivey, this could be a stretch where maybe Ivey could have stretched his legs.
It's funky. The whole Jaden Ivey thing has been debated ad nauseum. I think the fact of the matter is the fact that you traded him for Kevin Herter, who's having a career worst year from 3 as opposed to a career best year from 3, lets you know what Ivey's value was around the league by that point. I know they started engaging with Sacramento on a deal, and that was around the time that Sacramento was about to trade Dennis Schroeder and who's the other kid? Why am I drawing a blank?
Keon Ellis
to Cleveland, but they were so far down the road that there was no point in really engaging. So Detroit wound up turning to Chicago, and I've asked the question: why not a Kobe White? Why not a Ayo Dosunmu? You know, those guys being moved, like those were better players, but it's clear that the value of what Jaden Ivey was around the league wasn't as high. And I don't know if he was going to turn things around here this season. That's why Jaden Ivey should sue Cole Anthony for lost wages, pain, and suffering.
Well, I'll just say that if he's back by the playoffs and he's okay by the playoffs, then this will just be a forgotten thing, other than that area on his back, because I'm sure it is sore as hell. And I'm sure he is not feeling great about things right now, but it could be worse. And so we'll see what happens. All right. Speaking of injuries that in the Central Division, we have another Giannis situation, guys. So Shams reported on it yesterday. There was a lot of news in the last 2 days. Plus, it's the NCAA tournament week, and so it's easy to kind of lose track of this. But Giannis hurt his knee. It's his 5th injury of the season. He's missed the last few games. I think he hurt it in the game, and he missed the game with Cleveland earlier this week. Anyway, the Bucks kind of want him to shut it down. He does not want to shut it down, and it goes to a couple of different things. One, let's say he doesn't play again this year, just for the sake of argument. His hyperextended knee, it's not like a chronic thing. He just stepped wrong. But if he doesn't play again this year, it's 36 games on the season. He has played less than 70 games and look, 70 is still a lot. Let's just say the 65 number. This is the 4th time in the last 7 years he's going to fail to play 65 games, and obviously least games he's ever played. He's 31 years old, still should have years left in his prime.
Mm-hmm. I know where you're going with this.
That was a nasty fall, by the way.
When he hurt his knee?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Doc diagnosed it. Last time around, Giannis gave him his own self-diagnosis. He's like, yeah, I haven't had an MRI, but it's a calf strain. It's probably 4 to 6 weeks. And then Doc came like 2 days later. He goes, Giannis diagnosed it correctly. So Giannis said after the game the other night, he goes, yeah, I'm not getting an MRI. And Doc's like, looked like a hyperextension to me. And sure enough, that's what it was. So the Bucks are having a struggled season, but their diagnosis of injuries is right on point. 5 years, $270, Vince, is his contract extension. The pathway for the Bucks to keep Giannis, regardless of what anybody wants to say, is that you offer him that extension, you get him to sign that extension. Do you feel good about extending Giannis to 5 years, $270 million?
That's a great question. Because the name that pops up for me when thinking about Giannis and the runway that he's already had with the Milwaukee Bucks, minus, of course, the championship. Kevin Garnett spent a lot of years holding up that Minnesota Timberwolves franchise. And then it wound up it never capsized, right? But they wound up having like 41-41, missing the playoffs. Like after he won MVP in 2004, I want to say they never got back to the playoffs the next 3 years. So then when
they might have got the playoffs, they never got out of the first round. I know that.
They didn't. They only got out of the first round the one time, before, which was the MVP year. And so when KG got to Boston, there was only so much tread left on his tires. Like they won in 2009, it was 2008, excuse me, and it was a great year. And then in 2009, the decline starts because he tears his knee in Utah, I want to say. He misses the rest of that year. He's back the next year, but he looks like not a shell of himself, but a diminished version of himself. They wound up getting the trip to the finals out of it. But Kevin Garnett, in my opinion, left Minnesota 2 years too late because of everything that's happened. The question is going to be...
Age 31, by the way. He went to Boston at age 31.
Are we going to be asking ourselves with Giannis doing this, should I, shouldn't I dance with the Bucks for the past few years? are we going to be looking at this a few years from now and saying, man, Giannis waited too long because he only has so many
and by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt
left.
you. You are correct. He never went back to the playoffs with the Timberwolves.
Could we also?
I'm good on trivia. I'm good on trivia, Wendy.
Oh yeah, I saw you the other day on Get Up. You pulled something out your you know where on trivia, and you know what he did, Slater? So Hembo is he works on the Get Up show, and he comes up with the trivia questions. And like, look, I'm just be honest with you, I kiss his ass because when I want trivia, I want him to give me a question I got a chance to get. I don't want to be embarrassed on national television. I'm not good at trivia. Well, Vince pulled out some answer. He pulled out Kenny. I don't remember what the question was, but he pulled Kenny Anderson.
It was. I'll get you the question. The question was, who is the one freshman to score 25 points in 3 NCAA tournament games? And I was thinking like Carmelo, but I'm like, that's too easy. And then we had just finished talking about Darius A-Cup. I'm like, oh, maybe it's a guard, or maybe he's from Detroit. It's Chris Webber. I'm like, no, Chris Webber didn't do that. So then I said guard, Lethal Weapon 3, Kenny Anderson. And I was guessing my ass off, and it happened to be correct.
That's kind of in your wheelhouse, though, of like era sport.
I mean, I do not remember Kenny Anderson in the NCAA.
Freaky.
I remember
freaky.
That's why I said Vinny's wheelhouse.
Okay. Well, fair. So then he danced on him. He danced on Hembo. And
you think that's a risk? That's a questionable move.
I think he got lost in the moment and is going to pay the price later on, is what I think.
I got 2 questions on Hembo. I answered the NFL question right for Graziano. That's when I danced on him. I came out from the back. I was done for the day, and they said, get Vinny out because they knew what the answer was.
You're going to get like 1970s.
I know. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible from now on. I'm never going to get an answer right.
Batting average in 1979 or something.
No, he's going to get NBA because that's what he'll do, but he'll get like, some answer where it was like the Syracuse Nationals in 1951. That's what he's going to get.
It's going to be no fun. It's going to be no fun.
But you always have that moment where you danced on him. I'll give you that.
Vinny said something to wrap us back to the topic. He said, "Are we a couple years from now going to be asking if Giannis waited too long?" Which I'm sure will be the topic most discussed. You mentioned like the Garnett example. But also like, is Milwaukee waiting too long? And I think that's part of what Brian was, if they're the one, like, should they offer the 5-270? Shouldn't they have already just jumped at the opportunity? Should they jump this summer prior to even getting an answer from Giannis on that? Because among the many reasons, with Giannis on their team, they're irrelevant, right? They shut it, or, they're having this issue over should they shut him down, should they not? It's not like he's leading them to winning when he's on the court right now. They're 2-9 in their last 11. It's like, are they going to have do
you want to know, since we walked down the path of the Rasheed Wallace trade, do you want to know what the Kevin Garnett trade was in 2007? How about that for trivia, Vinny?
Was that Al Jefferson?
Yep.
Al Jefferson
there was
a big
6
piece.
Players. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 players and two picks. I'll just tell you 2 first-round picks. I'll tell you who the picks became in a minute, but Al Jefferson was sort of the centerpiece.
Was it Gerald Green?
Gerald Green. Good job. He's I'm not going to mess with this guy, Slater. I mean, this guy's, the trade was as follows: 2 Boston, Kevin Garnett; 2 Minnesota, Al Jefferson, Ryan Gomes. Former Celtic. Well,
covered him in Oklahoma City. Former a few teams, for sure.
Sebastian Telfair.
Covered him in Oklahoma City. Former.
Look at you.
Wow.
Gerald Green, Theo Ratliff, and 2 first-round picks that became Wayne Ellington and Steph Curry. No, just kidding, Johnny Flynn. If it was Steph Curry, then that would have been a different trade.
Wow, what a time!
They also traded for Ray Allen that summer for the pick that became Vinny
Jeff Green.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Green, he's correct.
That's right. Uncle Jeff.
But that happened on draft night, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of Sam Presti, I think 30, 31 at the time, his first big moves, including at the same time he also signed and traded Rashard Lewis to Orlando, and then that created a domino effect that has created the Shea. You guys know that whole domino effect, right? I hope.
The domino effect.
Kurt Thomas, and the pick becomes the pick that's Ibaka. Ibaka becomes Sabonis and Oladipo. Sabonis and Oladipo become Paul George. Paul George becomes Shea
Gilgeous-Alexander.
Wow.
And Jalen
Williams. But you could do that with, like I see people.
That's the most legendary. That is a pretty legendary one, though.
That's true, but you can.
He completely.
This is like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Kerr. You're right. That one you can really direct through.
No, he didn't swindle Steve Kerr. He took advantage of Steve Kerr being ordered to cut money.
Of Robert Sarver. I should have said Robert
there you
Sarver.
Go.
You're correct.
There you go.
With all due respect to Steve as the GM, I mean they sold the rights to Rajon Rondo.
Nobody is more critical of Steve Kerr as a GM than Steve Kerr.
By the way, for whatever you want to say about Steve Kerr, he won an Oscar last week.
Correct.
If you want to criticize certain coaching decisions or certain, players that he hasn't treated well or made mistakes on, of course. The guy had how many rings as a player? 5 rings as a player, right? Played for Phil Jackson, played for Greg Popovich, has 4 rings as a head coach, 2 gold medals, right? Or maybe
one
he
is
was
an assistant.
One is an assistant. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, no, 2 gold medals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't coaches better than me? Do coaches not get actual gold medals though?
They do not. I don't.
Yeah. So
I mean, I don't know if he
does, but
I don't know if he, I don't know if they get gold medals and say I don't know that, but he was standing there when they got the gold medals. I mean that counts for something. And last week he won an Oscar.
You know what else last week? I mean, the Oscar, but also then this speaks to what you're talking about. He won his 600th game as a coach this week.
Yeah.
Same night as the Oscar, I believe. And he became only the second person ever to win 600 games as a player and as a coach. Don Nelson, I believe. That's the stat I saw. Don Nelson was the other. Yeah.
That would have been a good trivia question.
Wow.
And
that was my one. Vinny wouldn't have got that.
I wouldn't have.
As far as a life, his father was assassinated when he was a teenager. I believe he was a teenager. And, what was it, 6-7 years ago, 8 years ago, he had back surgery that basically failed and caused him to be debilitated for years. He's still not 100%. So this is a guy who's had the highest of the highs and some of the lowest of the lows. Like, talk about a life. And tomorrow he coaches against the Pistons, Vince. That's right. Anyway, so
that's almost like you and your lawyer thing last week, Wendy. Benny, are you going to need a lawyer? You don't remember? I don't think Slater was around. Slater was around for that one. Oh, yeah.
All I'm going to tell you is this, and I hate teasing people like this, but I'm sorry I can't help it. And Jackson can back me up. When we turned the cameras off with Alex Spiro, and he started talking lawyer stuff, that's when it got interesting. But look, I can only do what I can do. All right. Well, basically the point is here, you have the question about what to do with Giannis. Do you trade him or do you extend him? Okay. Mm-hmm. Giannis obviously has to say, I want the extension. If Giannis says, I want the extension, are you giving it to him? I don't see how they don't. So, but I would say
Can
this.
I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you say, I don't see how they don't, is that you just saying, I know how the Bucks operate. I know how they think. I know their organizational priorities. So I believe that they will, because then I would probably agree. Do you think that they should, though?
How can they not, Vince? I don't know how they can't.
What's on the table for them? What type of trades?
That's the thing.
Monster packages.
If they research this trade, if they research these trades, they saw what Rasheed Wallace went for, saw what Kevin Garnett went for, those trades didn't help those teams. It didn't make Atlanta any better.
Can I ask you all something, though? Yeah. Where are they going with Giannis right now? What is happening
that's
on
the question.
The court?
Look, in February, when he had his 3rd calf injury of the year, they probably at that point should have said, you're done playing. And instead of going 500 or actually they won a bunch of games and now they're trapped in 10th place, maybe they would be up there. We talked about it then. And so they brought Giannis back and he got hurt again. And now they're, in a stare down with him.
Well, the question I have is less about what are they going to do with him? Because we know the Bucks would be largely irrelevant without Giannis. Like you don't trade your franchise cornerstone and get better. Like the only time that's ever happened was Boston trading Garnett and Pierce, to Mikhail Prokhorov for the picks that became Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, blah, blah, blah. Those types of trades rarely happen. For me, if you are signing Giannis to that deal, or if Giannis accepts the deal, then in my book, it takes the pressure off of me to try to retool as fast as I can. If nothing else, if the past year has told us anything, is that sitting in the 10th spot or 11th spot in the draft lottery means you can get the number 1 pick, means you can elbow your way into the top 4. So there's no guarantee that just because they are where they are does not mean that some lottery hijinks will happen in Chicago in 2 months? Was that May 19th, May 20th, somewhere around there? I think we have to find out where the Bucks will be picking before we ask ourselves, okay, do they have to trade him? Do they have to extend him? Because
that's fair.
That's an unknown element to this entire equation right now.
But that's I guess fair. the if you do get him to sign the extension, okay, well then you have so much time to either rebuild around him or you can trade him later. You hold so much more leverage theoretically. But also, and I think this is what Brian's getting to, if you what you had at the deadline and what you should still have this summer is a market to trade him for a huge package, right? They were able to kind of spit at the Warriors' idea of the 4 firsts. I'm not sure if you signed him to 5 for $270. Is that what you said it was? And then a year from now, if the injuries accumulate or whatever, it might turn into an Anthony Davis, a trade. And I'm not saying it's going to be that, low of value, but don't you run the risk of that if you sign him to this monster extension that you're talking about and this injuries and age pile up?
To be clear, whoever trades for him is going to have this issue, and who's ever going to trade for him if they trade a lot of stuff. Like if the Warriors had gotten him for the 4 firsts, they're probably signing him to that extension, don't you think?
For sure. I'm just saying, and I think the more time that goes on, the more injuries that accumulate, like the risk you run is not striking while the iron's hot. I believe the iron was pretty dang hot at the deadline. Remember, we spent a few podcasts early in the season discussing man, how good of a trade could you theoretically get for Giannis? But the reality is by deadline time, they could have got really, in this age of stars being very hard to trade, they could have got a monster package. Well, I think understandably said, hey, let's wait till the summer. But at some point, the return may diminish. And I think part of that could be once the extension kicks in.
Well, the part of it is once the extension kicks in, he's harder to trade because the number is so massive. And in this era where you got to go dollar for dollar, especially if you're anywhere near a first apron, second apron situation or whatever it is, the picks won't just get it done. You got to go big for big. And I don't know how many salaries out there in the NBA that if it's 5 for $270, what's that? An average of $55 million a year. But the number might start off somewhere around 51 or 52 or something. You know what I mean? Like finding a number to match that if you decide in year 2 that you want to get off of Giannis and everything else and ship that 4 years and $210 million left, you got to find a match for that as opposed to just value. You got to find. There's not many teams that will have that type of capital left, that type of salary on the books that can absorb a Giannis and still have something left that'll make it palatable.
Well, and look, we got to see how this season ends between the two of them, the two sides. If Giannis is, basically saying, I want to play,
What if Giannis does this on the way out of the practice facility? He gives him the boo.
The thumbs down.
The thumbs down.
Listen. The team controls the inactive report. You can say whatever you want. The team controls the inactive report. They turn it in. So, but it's not, just put it this way. This whole season from cutting Dame and then signing Miles Turner through 5 injuries, through the, half-hearted, I don't even know what you want to call the way they've handled the second half of the season. They're trying to win. But not that well. They've had some moments, but I don't even know what you say.
Isn't that the biggest problem in this whole conversation, though? It's if they're protecting the Giannis era, where is it going? That's my whole thing.
But that was the case months ago, and that was the case weeks ago. And
I agree. That's
all right.
Okay. Yeah.
And where does Giannis's game go from here is also the question. Not just health. How will his game that depends so much on athleticism, activity, and that extra effort, if he starts to lose a little bit of it, where is it?
All right, Slater, you were in Boston on Wednesday night. Warriors at Celtics. You went to see Jaylen Brown's